I'm going to talk about Abigail. Now, this is another...
Who's that?
This is
Who the hell's Abigail?
Oh God, sorry.
Have you been recording videos with someone else?
I didn't want to do...
Who's this Abigail? Hello, and welcome to HAZMAT, the only show that attended a 24/7 Ghostbusters marathon and forgot who they were.
Forgot who were the Ghostbusters?
Forgot who we were.
Oh, we forgot who we were.
Because we watched 24 hours straight of Ghostbuster films. I'm Matt.
And I'm Harry.
And this is the monthly thing, where we talk about every new film we saw this month, whether we recommend them and what we thought about them, and just how we felt watching.
We didn't see any. Sorry, turn it off.
This month
Roll
we saw
credits.
nothing.
Roll
we were
credits.
busy. Sorry, so we just sat
Busy
at
month.
home.
Oh, jeez.
As a disclaimer, we may get into some spoilery territory at certain points, so we'll recommend them up top, and then you can decide whether you want to hear us talk about them or not. So it's your fault if you get spoiled.
Entirely. I like to blame the victim.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, absolutely. First up, Civil War.
Not to be confused with whatever Captain America was doing and Iron Man.
Different Civil War.
Whose side were you on?
I don't remember.
Wrong answer, Captain America.
Which side were you in this one?
Oh, definitely the Western forces.
This was a great film. I really enjoyed this. I thought, just as a experience of a film, it was really cool.
So a definite thumbs up from you.
Yes, recommend from me.
Yes.
I've made a whole thing about recommending a film and immediately forgot.
Immediate through out the window.
It's absolutely a recommend from me, yes.
Which is good, because it almost wasn't. It almost wasn't for me.
Okay.
I had to go back and think about it, and it is. And we were just talking about before we started recording here about how we're both kind of in agreement that your experience watching a film can affect your opinion on it.
Oh, yes, you did tell me about this.
I don't know why. I don't know what happened that day when I went to go see it, but Civil War was one of the most obnoxious film screenings I have ever been to.
It's such a weird film for that to happen.
Yeah, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, I saw a horror movie that day as well, and we're both kind of in agreement. Like, you'd think those were the kind of movies
in my
where...
experience, they're the ones that are more packed in, because people are generally going to see them, and so you're more likely to get disruptions.
You're more likely to go see a horror movie if you're going to see a movie because you're bored.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, Civil War is the kind of movie where you are going because you want to see it,
Mm.
but apparently not for some of the people that...
Yeah, it's an interesting movie to just go, yeah, let's go see that.
Yeah, just bad time all around. Like, it was just one of those experiences where I was kind of already in, like, a bad mood from the weekend I went to go see it. So I was like, I'll go to the cinema, because I always, like, have a fun time, and even if the film's bad, I still enjoy the cinema experience. So I was like, I'll go to the cinema, and it'll set me right, that's fine. No, apparently just made things worse.
Yeah, just the worst timing for that to happen.
Yeah, we need to sit everyone down right now and have a serious chat about cinema etiquette. There were 4 people sat in front, literally the row in front of me, watching this, who broke every rule in the book. They talked, like, pretty much the entire way through, and not even, like, whisper talked, like, talking like I am talking now, at just regular, like, room volume.
That's crazy. I would have been fuming.
2 of them were, like, on and off their phone regularly. I even, like, thought it was very funny because one of them was on a fucking, like, cryptocurrency trading app.
Gotta check the stocks,
like,
man.
yeah, you're exactly the kind of person that is this obnoxious to be behaving like this.
If the shoe fits.
They had their feet up because the seats in front of them were empty. They had their feet up.
Yeah.
One of them without shoes.
Oh, man.
The only saving grace was that it was another person. I've mentioned this to you. There was another person further away from me who was also talking and was talking loud enough for me to hear, and was clearly there with like a girl, and like he just kept talking, like saying things and commenting on like everything that happened until like one point he says something that is clearly like directed to engage her in conversation, and she just turns to him and goes like, "Will you be quiet?" In like the sternest, coldest, like most unforgiving tone.
Shut up.
And then he just stops. That's it.
Hell
like,
yeah.
never hear from him again.
Were you like, could you tell these ones as well? Or could you come over here and tell these ones, please?
Come over here, because I don't like conflict.
This one, don't I? I'm not gonna do
I'm
it.
not
I'm
having a
never
good.
gonna
I'm
do it.
not having a good time here. I am
No.
absolutely having the worst time of my life. But I will do nothing to stop it because I do not like conflict.
What I'll do
don't
is
like
I'll stay quiet
confrontation.
for now, and then I'll talk about it on my YouTube channel later.
I'll talk about my YouTube channel, and hopefully everyone will agree with me.
Yeah, and hopefully they watch.
And hopefully
know for
they'll
next time.
see it, and
Know for
they'll
next
know like which screening it was, and they'll know it's them.
Yeah.
and they'll try and justify it, and then everyone else will dogpile on them.
But despite all that,
Kirsten Dunst's acting was a bit wooden.
okay, well, interesting point, because I disagree with that. I think her performance was one of the best parts about it. I think she brought such a coolness or a coldness. Her character was someone who has seen so much shit that she's almost desensitized to it, being a war photographer, and I think it made for a nice contrast with the inexperienced character that was with them.
Yeah, there was a very
cool
interesting kind of thing dynamic there, in that they kind of take opposite paths through the movie. They're both doing the same thing but in opposite directions.
Yeah, exactly. It's a small conflict that continues throughout, it makes for a emotional journey as well, as they bond through these like horrific events that they're seeing and going through along the way. And I think that wouldn't have worked if Kirsten Dunst's character wasn't quite as cold and detached to the whole situation, I guess. Because the whole thing is she wasn't. Like, you could see there was moments where she was on the verge of a panic attack, but she has to keep a cool, like, professional head on. And so I think that was how she was playing it. I think it wasn't wooden per se. I think it was reserved.
It's one of those things where I think you can do that kind of performance and make it interesting. It just wasn't, like, there wasn't enough in terms of building towards the climax and her changing. I think it was too much on the, like, held back.
She kept it too
kind of
like
side.
cool. Okay, yeah, fair. I mean, there was a lot, like, the other characters were quite strong around her, which maybe didn't help. Like the Joe that was with them was quite a strong character. The older guy had
Sammy.
Yeah, Sammy.
It's one of the few names I remember.
Yeah, he had sort of a grandfather-esque personality going on of the group. And then obviously, I've forgotten her name as well, the younger one. This is sort of almost the one we're aligned with, because we're experiencing these horrors for the first time in the same way she is, whereas the other characters have been involved and seen this stuff before.
It's a strange way these characters are kind of portrayed, in the sense that traditionally with these kind of movies, you grow really attached to these characters and feel upset and sad and emotional when anything bad happens to them. But it is almost presented in a way like we can't remember the names of some of these characters. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing, in the sense that this isn't portrayed in a traditional way. It's that we're supposed to grow attached to these characters. They're almost supposed to be expendable, because the movie's making a point about the futility of war and how everyone involved is kind of seen as just an expendable part of it.
You remember the events and the images that you see. You're less likely to remember the name of the people who took the photographs. You think of famous photographs like that monk self-immolating, the one that Rage Against the Machine used on their album cover, and the guy in front of the tanks. Unless you know about photography, you wouldn't necessarily know who took those photos, but you would recognize the photos instantly and know where they're from in the context. So yeah, I think it was maybe a deliberate way to make these characters not the forefront, but make the world and the environment the forefront. We're on this journey, but we're supposed to just be dragged along with them to see the sort of dystopian society America has like fallen into, and all these different environments. And I thought it was interesting that they go through like the countryside, and it's still beautiful, and there's these luscious green fields, but then like these guys are just tipping like dead bodies out of a back of a truck or whatever, like in the middle of like a luscious countryside. I thought that contrast was like really cool, because when you think of war, you think muddy battlefields, bombed cities and stuff like that, which you see plenty of in this, but it was interesting that there's still these almost untouched areas like that are still throughout the country that they're able to like travel through and almost like forget that there's so much turmoil going on.
It's like these characters are tools through which the audience is able to experience the imagery that is being presented before us, almost like a camera lens.
You don't think?
They introduced two characters purely to get killed.
I thought that was interesting. I thought that scene was terrifying. By the way, I think I wasn't as locked into this film in any other part as much as I was that scene, because that Jesse Plemons character is only there for a brief time, but is like a standout character for this movie for me, because he just plays it so terrifyingly psychopathic. He's
pretty much typecast at that.
I mean, he is so good at that. But I know what you mean. It took the jeopardy out when the only two he killed were the two we just met and didn't particularly care about.
I think the one sequence in this movie that really sums up like the whole point and kind of the message across is the scene where they're driving through the Christmas display, and there's the two guys in a battle with a sniper who's like holed up in a building, and they have this like back and forth like dialogue bit about like, do you know who's in there? No. Like what side are you guys fighting for? Oh, we're not really fighting for a side,
we're just here.
He's trying to kill us and we're trying to kill him. And it's kind of that whole idea of how the whole point of war just gets lost in translation somewhere. Like, you might know the events of how a war starts, but like for the people fighting it, like they're just kind of doing a job.
Eventually, it's just life and death. Simply,
Yeah.
there's no politics anymore.
Just wild that in the year of our Lord 2024, we're still having to make films to portray the idea that war is bad.
I know.
How have we not learned? Like,
Have we not figured it out yet? And yeah, there's new ones cropping up every damn day. Yeah, I mean, I can't, I guess, talk too much about the specific politics of the film. Like, I'm not super well versed on American politics.
They don't really kind of go into like what series of events or what was kind of like the trigger point for why it starts.
It's quite vague, and I've seen that be a bit of a criticism for it, in that it doesn't quite land on one side or the other, or really make a point beyond, wouldn't this be bad if it happened? But I think it didn't need to.
No.
It wasn't trying to alienate anyone or point fingers, I guess. It was just more of a factual thing, which again reflects like what a photographer's job is to report the facts.
Yes, they've set out to make an anti-war movie and not muddy it with like the reasons why. That would just detract from the fact that we're saying that war is bad regardless of like what the intentions or what the reasoning is.
Bloodshed should not happen. And that's not a hot take.
It's just not. I'm pretty sure most people would agree.
Maybe
with
the
that.
coldest take of all time.
It's not even cold. Like, I feel like cold is like the opposite end of like a spectrum. Like, this is like room. It's a
right
room temperature
take.
lukewarm take.
Bloodshed is bad. Yeah, I just enjoyed the experience. I think I thought it was an incredibly tense movie to sit through, but it was enthralling and it was thrilling, and I liked it.
Yeah. Don't go into it with the expectation that you can really just like eat snacks or anything.
It's not quite a popcorn movie, really, but I think we've talked about how it's been advertised. Thinking, I didn't really see much of the trailers or anything, but it does seem like it's a bit more of a post-apocalypse kind of vibe, whereas it's a bit more close to home. You know, it's not quite as far removed as like a post-apocalypse type thing would be. You know.
Yeah, I think that's probably why like there were so many fucking dickheads.
That's what I mean.
That day.
People
like,
probably
because
just
it was
saw
advertised as like a big like action epic, and it really wasn't.
No, it was a much more down to earth story about human nature and like what humans can be pushed to do in these circumstances, I guess. And like the sort of psychopathy, is that how you say that word, that can come out of certain people given the chance.
Yeah.
Like we're all part of society, and most of us follow the rules of society, so we can all live in peace. But if certain people are pushed, you don't know what they're capable of.
We
and
live
it could
in a
be
society.
anyone. We live in a society, and that's not a hot take. Next up, Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire.
Cold Case was a better name.
Cold Case was so much
Cold
better.
Case is such a better name.
Why didn't they go with Cold Case?
Don't mean to like toot my own horn, but
So this is not a recommend from me, to be honest.
no, I'd say the same.
This one falls a bit flat, both comedically and plot-wise, I think.
I mean, plot-wise, it was basically very similar to what we.
It's the same old shit. Big enemy emerges, tries to take over the city, and they stop it with lasers.
Yeah.
We talked about it a bit watching Afterlife. The fun and the wackiness and the charisma of the originals is sort of lost in translation a bit here in this kind of modern version of it.
Yeah.
It's taking itself a bit seriously now, and it's trying to be an epic thing when it's really not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a goofball comedy. So yeah, we just said like coming out, like none of the jokes really landed that well. And considering they got one of Britain's finest comedians,
One of the best,
to play a role, but they brought him on to play a straight man scientist who just explains
has
things.
almost no like comedic dialogue whatsoever. It is all exposition.
He just explains like what's going on and all these things. He's just there to like move information across.
They did him so dirty.
Yeah, really. Like he got a couple of bits of personality towards the end. I don't know if it was the thing where they recorded more and it just was edited down and like a lot of his stuff wasn't included, because it was already like quite a long film, but just kind of a wasted potential. Like I'm such a big fan of James Acaster, and I was looking forward to seeing him in like a proper film, because he hasn't done that much, but like
I can imagine
what a waste.
I can imagine with someone like James Acaster that maybe they gave him some more screen time, some more comedic stuff, and it wouldn't have tested particularly well with American audiences, because James Acaster has a very dry, very sarcastic kind of delivery to a lot of his stuff.
It's a very British.
It is
sense
very
of humor,
quintessentially British,
but it's also a quite surreal sense of humor as well. So like, all that mixed up maybe didn't test well with general
I can imagine like
audiences. You're right.
American audiences probably wouldn't have really got it.
I mean, it was cool to see him regardless in a film, I guess. Like, that's cool for him to be in a Ghostbusters film. In terms of the other characters, I think it's starting to spread itself a bit thin now. Because we've still got the old dudes, which is, by the way, they were the best part of this film, hands down, as they always are. Finn Wolfhard didn't really have much to do here. He felt like a bit of a spare part.
Yeah, I don't even really remember him having any kind of arc or anything.
He was sort of, every time it cut to him, he was sort of trying to catch Slimer, which by the way, wasn't even much of a reveal either. I don't think, like, it was, Slimer's here.
Yeah, he's just here. Also, Finn Wolfhard's an adult, he's 18. That's his whole narrative arc for this movie.
He's an adult now. Yeah. I don't know if they're together, but the one he likes, the girl he likes, Lucky, I think she's called, didn't need to be there. She was with them in that small town. Like, why is she in New York again? Like,
they've all moved back to New York, and for some reason, Lucky's here, and
Podcast is also here. Like, I like Podcast as a character. He's got a nice quirkiness to him, but again, like, not much to do. They just have all these characters, and they don't know what to do with any of them because there's not that many subplots because it's a Ghostbusters film. Like, it's not complicated. So they're having to cater to the old guys. They're having to have like a Paul Rudd couple story with the mum.
Yeah.
But Phoebe's kind of the main character, and then there's all these other just spare parts kind of floating around, and they're trying to get them to like look in with the story, but it's just not really working.
Yeah, and like the novelty of having the original cast back has kind of run its course at this point.
Yeah,
like it was
because they're just in it now. It's not even they're coming back at the end again. It's like
they're just de facto part of the series again.
Yeah.
For the most part, Paul Rudd is carrying. Paul Rudd is carrying so hard. He's doing everything he can performance-wise. I think Paul Rudd has the same level of charisma and entertainment value that the original cast has.
No, absolutely. He's great. He's a real highlight. And I think McKenna Grace that plays Phoebe is great as well. And I think they had a kind of emotional story throughout that they had to work through. Like, she doesn't see him as her dad yet, and she's been cast out of the group, and he's still trying to bond with her and stuff. And I thought that was a little interesting thing to kind of anchor everything down and give them like motive.
I think there's one bit that gets like a chuckle out of me, and it's the bit where Paul Rudd is just having a talk with his new partner, their mother, and then he's just like justifying everything by using the lyrics from the Ghostbusters theme.
Yeah, I like that. That was good.
Like, no one else could really do that kind of delivery and make it seem
He
funny.
made it work. Yeah, it could have been quite cringe. And to be honest, I think that was a trailer shot.
Yeah.
They knew that would work well as the final bit of the trailer, the little joke before the title.
Little cap off at the end.
But yeah, I don't know if this series has just run its course now. I don't know if you can do much else with it. I think they're really milking it. But to be honest, I think as long as Dan Aykroyd and the lads want to do it, it's going to be going. But I think once they're done, I don't know if they should do anymore.
Yeah, because I'm glad to see they're still having fun doing it. And
yeah, I think that's a nice thing about it, is you can tell they're still happy to be there. It's not like they're dragging them back into it. No. Like, you can tell they still enjoy putting those jumpsuits back on, but I wouldn't be interested in a Ghostbusters film that has nothing to do with them.
That took them out and it was just like the new cast.
Yeah, it seems like they're planning a few and they're trying to set up this new generation, but I'm not interested.
Next up, I'm going to talk about The First Omen, which is not the first movie because they did other ones before this. Very confusing.
Hang on a minute.
I had not seen any of the other Omen movies before watching this. Okay. I'm a little disappointed with my horror installments this month. But
we had quite a good run last month with horror.
But for the opposite reasons. Like, I feel like it's become a staple of the monthly thing now that I get to talk about at least one bad horror movie.
Yeah.
But both the ones I saw, I kind of liked.
Oh, okay.
I thought they were pretty good.
Right.
Like, I'd say this one gets a recommend from me because it stands pretty strongly on its own as like a standalone movie. You don't have to have seen The Omen. Thematically, very similar to Immaculate.
It seemed like that in the trailer, yeah.
It is very much about a splinter group of Christianity doing something bad involving rearing a child into the world. Which I guess, like, if that's the plot of your movie, it's difficult with it being a prequel because you kind of already know with The Omen existing that they are successful in doing so.
Oh, so yeah.
But it's not really about that. It's just kind of about like the horror experience. It's again similarly to Immaculate. I was going in expecting a very supernatural heavy, like, ghost and monster kind of scare fest, but it leans more into like the kind of the violence and like the blood and the gore of it. I feel like those kind of movies, the very religious symbolism heavy, they're like a dime a dozen. It's a very easy thing to do. Like I think, like I said, with Immaculate, religion is inherently scary. It could have been very easy to go into this and just be bored and sit in your hands, but no, it does enough. It does enough to keep you engaged throughout. I didn't know a lot about Sydney Sweeney's work before going into Immaculate, but I can say that I preferred her performance in the lead role than I did with this one. It's just that scream, that blood-curdling scream that Sydney Sweeney delivers at the end is so like fantastically
you mean
done.
the one from the trailer? Don't get me fucking started.
I'm fuming.
No, you shouldn't have mentioned that.
But they have a similar moment in this, and it's just, it doesn't hit as hard. I suppose like scares wise, I feel like it is a little light on the scares. That might be just because it's me watching it. I've watched so much horror that like I can kind of
so jaded.
Yeah, like I can see scares being set up now.
Yeah.
There is one really good scare in it. Like I don't know how they did it, because like I predict it coming a mile away, where like it's just panning around her room. Like they show she hangs up like her nun's vestments on the wall, and they keep panning around the room and then coming back to it, and then one time they come back to it and it's like it's another nun, it's like another person there, and that like got me. But like I knew they were gonna do it, but still like anyway, it's still like, oh fuck you, movie. But yeah, it's just I think it's just a fun time, this one.
Nice.
It's got some very like disturbing kind of imagery throughout that I was like, Jesus, I can't believe like how this is an Omen movie. I didn't realize the Omen was kind of so hardcore. Like,
damn.
At some times, but very funny the way this movie ends. Essentially, she ends up giving birth to twins. One of them is the Antichrist, and one of them is another baby girl, because obviously they need a baby boy to be the Antichrist. Never really explain why it has to be a boy, but
it's Damien, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that is the ending of the movie. Is that the priest who does this, like, delivers this speech to her, and he has this exchange about like how they're gonna be looking for you, they're gonna be coming for you, and you need to be ready. And then he turns to leave, does the Columbo, like turns back around.
One more thing.
He's like, they've given him a name, like your baby. And then they like do the slow zoom into like Damien. Like that's a big like, and then the movie ends, and it's like that's a big reveal. And it's like, no, we already knew.
It's not a reveal.
It's a prequel. We already knew.
We knew that.
Wait, is this supposed to be like some kind of like big zinger to end the movie on? You don't think? You don't think?
What the?
But overall, yeah, a strong kind of movie. Might actually go back and watch some of the older stuff. Other than that, yeah, just fun horror movie. Next up, I'm going to talk about Abigail. Now this is another.
Who's that?
This is
who the hell's Abigail?
Oh god, sorry.
Have you been recording videos with someone else?
I didn't want to do.
Who's this Abigail?
I didn't want to talk about this like on the video. I wanted to bring this up in private. Easy recommend for me, even easier than the First Omen. This movie, like, I had quite low expectations going on into. I think we've both been to see something where we saw a trailer for this, and the trailers don't do it justice at all.
I didn't like how it looked.
It's the trailers really kind of ham it up and focus on the comedic aspects. The comedy in this movie is much more kind of toned down than that. I think they shouldn't have highlighted Catherine Newton in the trailer, because all of the bad comedy lines pretty much come from her.
Okay.
This is another one where it's made by movie production company Radio Silence, which is a company I really like. They started off as a YouTube channel called, I think it was just Chad, Matt, and Rob. They used to do like these interactive adventure videos. They did these little horror skits, and you could tell like they were talented and like passionate about filmmaking and everything. And now they've gone and made like a successful film production company, which is always really cool, and I like to support that.
Very cool to see.
Radio Silence behind a lot of big movies. I think they're now producing the VHS movies, the newer ones. This is just a really, really fun horror movie. I can't remember the last time I went out and saw a proper good like splatterfest horror film, and this is what this is. The amount of blood you see and like gore and viscera throughout this film is insane, and I wasn't expecting it to be as much. I think that's part of the trailer effect, is the trailer made it seem like more of a kind of gateway horror, in a sense, the kind of horror that like the It reboots are, the kind of horror
a bit
that
sort of campy.
Yeah,
sort of
yeah, where it's like
general-
it's horror light,
Yeah.
where it's not a full-on horror, and it's kind of for people who want to watch horror but don't like horror
A
movies.
fun family afternoon.
Yeah, bring your kids. Great time, great time. Dan Stevens is in this, who seems to be on a bit of a tear through Hollywood at
He
the
seems
moment.
to be having a moment.
He's having his star moment because he's going to come back later. We're going to talk about him again.
Yeah.
But he plays two vastly different characters in the two things I've seen him in this month. Like, he is a straight up dick in this, like, throughout.
Yeah.
Like, you can't help but, like, hate the guy. But so many of the characters, other than our lead, are very much made to be unlikable, so that when they start getting killed off and the twists and turns this movie takes, like, you're kind of rooting for them to die in the end. Elon Musk isn't in this. I seemed like he was from the trailers, but he's not, because there's a guy in it that looks very similar to Elon Musk, but he is jacked. He is fucking jacked.
Why would Elon Musk be in a random, like, horror film?
It wouldn't surprise me, like, the fact that he's so ingrained in pop culture.
He'd be so
yeah.
bad at it, yeah, but he'd probably...
But no, like, Elon
fund
Musk
one and be in
wishes
it.
he was that fucking ripped.
Oh, for sure.
But, like, the character that I thought it was Elon Musk is probably my favorite character in this movie, because he straight up plays, like, the dunder, like, meathead, like, muscled up guy, and, like, his line delivery is so perfect in how, like, everything goes over his head, but he plays it, like, so straight-laced. It takes a lot of, like, twists and turns, this movie. Eventually you end up kind of on Abigail's side, even though she spent the majority of the film, like, hunting these people down and murdering them in, like, increasingly brutal ways. But then there's a big kind of twist involved at the end, and you kind of side with her. You're like, actually, Abigail, you weren't so bad afterwards.
You know what, Abigail? You're not so bad.
You're not so bad.
Not so bad, Abigail.
I liked you in Wicked Little Letters.
Yeah.
I liked you in Matilda.
Yeah.
You're coming up. You're moving up in the
You're
world.
doing well.
You're doing well for yourself. You're doing well for yourself. I think it could have very easily been boring to look at, this movie. It's like, it's all contained within this one, like, sort of rundown, old-fashioned estate house. It's very dark for the most part, because obviously it's a vampire. Like, if you set it during the day, they just fucking die straight away. But I think it's enough. Like, there's sort of different environs throughout the house. They keep things moving around enough that it doesn't become, like, static. It's always kind of in motion for the most part. Eventually just coating everything in blood and giving it a nice, like, red sheen to everything is great. Just
Absolutely.
everything I wanted. I've not seen a gore fest to, like, this extent for a long time, and I didn't realize I was craving one until I saw this.
And bloodshed should happen. And that's a hot take.
That's a hot take in that sometimes I
Sometimes
know we're going
bloodshed.
back on what we said before.
I know
and
this is
that
contradicting our previous points.
we're adding an addendum, an asterisk to that
Sometimes
point. Sometimes bloodshed
bloodshed
should happen.
happen.
It should happen.
If it involves
the
a vampire
guise-
ballerina.
Yeah, in the guise of fake bloodshed. If it's fake bloodshed,
That's
but
fine.
you're making it look real and you're making it look sick as hell, cool, go ahead,
Yeah.
do that. Do that as much as you want. I want to see more of that.
Absolutely.
A real bloodshed? No. Take that
No,
off.
nowhere.
It was a nice little tribute to Angus Cloud as well.
Yeah, who has unfortunately passed away.
Passed away. He was in Euphoria, I think
Yes,
was it?
was his
And then
biggest
he's
thing.
in this. But yeah, great fun time. Definitely easy. Easy recommend.
Next up, Kung Fu Panda 4.
Can't believe they're on 4.
4 Kung Fu Panda films,
Kung Fu
Jeremy.
Pandas.
4?
That's
That's
insane.
insane. This is a recommend for me.
Oh yeah.
Why not? It's Kung Fu Panda, in it.
It's Kung Fu Panda. You kind of know what you're getting into
Yeah,
at this
it's
point.
the same as the other 3, which is exactly what you want. It was weird to watch it sober, I'll say that.
Yeah, after we experienced the last 3, it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah, it was very odd. My one gripe, no Furious 5.
No
Or
Furious
barely
5,
Furious 5.
very specifically,
Very
no
specifically
Tigress.
one. Tigress, where are you, girl?
Well, when we say no, we say
Angelina?
tacked on right at the end.
She didn't even speak.
Small appearance from, but doesn't say anything. Doesn't
Only
say
one
anything.
credited was Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen for yelling.
But it's a classic passing the baton story, passing down the Dragon Warrior title. It was the premise, Poe has to find a successor. And I thought they brought in an interesting character, funnily enough played by Aquafina, who we mentioned a couple of times in our video for it. What are the odds of that, eh? She's got to crop up. If it's an animated film, Aquafina's
she
cropping
crops
up at
up
some point.
like everywhere.
She's
like,
got such a cool, recognisable voice
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
it just pops out. So I think she's always a good choice for these little sort of sarcastic, sassy
yeah, like
characters.
quipping. And, yeah.
And I like the character of Zhen. Fun time. I mean, there's not. We're not going to analyze this in the same way
No.
that we talked about like Civil War, but it's like it was just a well made. They're a well-oiled machine over there.
Yep.
I think with these ones now, it's just
I
like,
think DreamWorks is so experienced with like
they can just churn
especially
these things out.
the team that's working on. I assume they keep the same kind of teams together
presumably.
for their different properties and franchises. I will say I do think it's the weakest one so far.
Yeah, I think I'd probably agree with that.
I think I prefer the other three more, but it's still like good.
Still
None of
good.
them have been bad.
This one, I thought, more than the other two sequels, relies too hard on back references to older stuff.
Yeah.
But it's because it was a end of the road for Poe sort of vibe. So it kind of brought back all the old enemies from the other ones and had all those callbacks. So I guess it did earn it. Like it's the fourth in a film. It's got a lot of lore now. It's gonna have
the end game
back
moment.
references. Yeah. But that being said, it had some funny new characters in. I liked the sequence in the bar. I liked the pelican guy and the fish. I thought that was a funny character.
That tavern sequence is so creatively filmed.
Yeah,
like, it's constantly
the way it's
like
on the thing,
it's on like a cliffside. It's just like swinging side to side, I think it's so hard to get characters to like react to the environment, especially like one that's constantly shifting and changing, without it feeling like cluttered. But these movies have proven time and time again they can do action sequences.
The motion is always so smooth.
Yeah. Even though they're pulling off some crazy moves sometimes, like you never feel like you don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah, it's all very clear.
And always appreciate it when studios will give Ke Huy Quan work.
Oh yeah, he was cool. It was nice to
there.
hear him show up as the head of the thief gang or whatever.
He's there, and I always appreciate him being there because
Absolutely.
he's kind of catching up at this point. He was not doing anything for a long time, and
now he's probably getting offer after offer. And I hope it never dries up.
or soundtrack as well. Just as a little tidbit at the end, soundtracks for these movies are always great.
Oh, it was great. Fun. Well, just Jack Black being a great musician always helps. Fun cover of Hit Me Baby One More Time.
Jack Black needs to stop being so fun.
He's getting too fun now.
Be serious for once,
No,
Jack
he's getting
Black.
too silly.
You're so fun and so charming in everything you're in. I just need you to be serious for once.
There's no edge to you. You're just too happy.
Where's your Oscar role? You're never going to get the Oscar if you
never
don't
got to
take
get your
on a
uncut
serious
gems.
role.
We need a Jack Black uncut gems.
Oh, he needs. Come on, just give it a try.
And
Jack.
I know you can pull it off, Jan. Next up, the Book of Clarence.
Contrary to the title, a film, not a book.
A film, not a book. Solid recommend from me.
Yeah, I had a fun time. I had a fun time with this.
Comedy's back, baby.
Comedy
we keep
is
saying
back.
it. Comedy is back.
We keep pushing this, and
Yeah.
it's going to seem like we're pushing it really hard because it's not true, but it is true.
It's so true. Comedy
It's
is so back, baby.
It's so back.
And we're talking solid comedy. None of this rom-com. None of this action comedy. None of this horror comedy. I'm talking comedy.
Comedy, full stop.
Biblical comedy as well. Always fun.
Always fun, and
Such
not,
a ripe for the
something that
picking
people will get
era.
angry at.
Yeah. Love Lakeith Stanfield. Big fan. Quite a few people in this movie I've seen in other things and I'm a fan of, and I just enjoyed the ride, man. I always like seeing interpretations of this time period and Jesus and stuff, but done in interesting ways.
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
obviously do the whole Passion of the Christ serious vibe. I think in the grand scheme of things, I don't think that many films have done Jesus on this time period. There's the old stuff like the Ten Commandments, proper old biblical films from like the 40s and stuff. But I don't think there's been too many comedies, at least, set in this time period. So I thought that was an interesting, like Life of Brian.
Yeah, and I think specifically the kind of the story of the crucifixion. Those are the two movies you've already named them. Sort of the two other big movies you can think of that.
Yeah.
Surround that.
Yeah.
Is like Passion and Life of Brian.
You'd think it would have been explored more, but it hasn't really.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like it transcends religion, because even if you're not a devout Christian, you probably know the story of the crucifixion.
You know it. We talk about it every bloody year at Easter. So I thought it was interesting to do a comedy from this time period and this environment. There's some interesting new things you can do with that, because I liked how they brought in kind of modern stuff. You know, they walked into the nightclub and there's bodyguards and stuff like that, and like they're smoking weed the whole time.
Well, that's the funny thing is, like, the most accurate way I have seen this movie described is that somebody said it's a stoner comedy in the guise of a biblical epic.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You're right.
And I was like, yeah, come to think of it, like, when was the last time like I saw anyone make a stoner comedy?
Yeah, that's such a like bygone era. Like we've talked about like the Judd Apatow era of
Yeah,
film,
that was
and
like the 2000s.
the
was
peak of stoner comedy.
Yeah, yeah.
It's cool to see it come back a bit. And Lakeith Stanfield is so good at that vibe. His character in Atlanta, which is maybe one of his biggest roles, is such a psychedelic guy, such a like head in the clouds kind of guy. He plays it a bit more straight here, but still hits the comedic points really well. And his sidekick that's with him, Elijah, I want to say, was just great. I love there's a scene where they both try and high five each other, but at different times, which I just thought there's just these little things like that I always love from comedy films, like background visual gags or like just little lines of dialogue that aren't like a massive punchline or a massive payoff. They're always my favorite bits in these comedies, just these little bits that you catch and you feel like good for catching them. You're like, oh, that was funny. I get that.
I think the way I would describe this is the Ed, Edd and Eddie movie we never got.
Yeah.
It is literally, it's like a group of 3 misfit friends doing a get rich quick scheme.
Yeah. It felt like a episode of a sitcom plotline.
Yeah.
Like I would actually love to see a series set with these guys just going around like Jerusalem. I think that would be so funny. It had that vibe. Yeah, the characters were so strong straight away, and you just love them immediately.
It's weird how like this movie can shift so suddenly, like tonally. It's for the first most of the second act, I'd say it is like just very lighthearted, very goofy at times, and then suddenly it becomes like this really, really emotionally heavy kind of profound movie.
Yeah, third act becomes much more poignant. Yeah, so it sort of loses a bit of that stoner comedy vibe, like you say, but it's sort of earned it up to that point. You know, we've got to know these characters and we're attached on this journey now, so I think it earns it anyway.
I think I've gone into this weird state where having like absorbed so many new movies I wouldn't have regularly seen, where they do tell stories more kind of like subtextually and they'll have like different messages and like things to say. I go into like every movie expecting that now, like for a movie to have something to say, like some kind of point to make, and like not every movie is like that.
No.
And this one isn't. It is a retelling of a story that we're familiar with from a different perspective.
Yeah, I felt a bit like dumb because I was like, what is it trying to say?
Well, yeah,
here?
like, am I not getting the message that they're going with? And it's like, no, it doesn't have like a message in that sense. It is just a different take on a story we're familiar with.
Yeah, it has lots of messages within it. Things like family are important and love should be everything. And like, it is the classic story of Jesus, but he just does everything a few days before.
It's Jesus being a side character in his own story.
Yeah, which I thought was just such a fun way to do it, like a story about Jesus that Jesus isn't the main guy.
Yeah. I hope. I really feel like a lot of Christians are going to be mad about this.
Yeah, I haven't seen much uproar, but quite possibly.
I imagine that's because it is one of those kind of films where it's not a big blockbuster, it's not super heavily advertised.
The people watching it are probably fans of like Lakeith Stanfield or the people in it, like, or just like comedy, small comedies and stuff.
If you saw a trailer for this in the cinema, it was because you were already sort of watching another niche comedy
similar kind of vibe, yeah.
Because they wouldn't have shown trailers for this in like a mainstream release. They would have shown other trailers for like the new Planet of the Apes and stuff like that.
Exactly. I've barely heard anything about this really. I just knew about it because, like I said, God, why do I want to marry him? But like I say, I'm a fan of Lakeith Stanfield, so I like just knew about it coming out and like wanted to see it.
Which is like why they've gotten away with it. I mean, I say gotten away with it. Like,
I mean, there's not really
this
much.
Movie tells the truth. It tells the truth.
Yeah,
Jesus wasn't white.
It never says anything bad. Yeah, Jesus wasn't white.
Jesus wasn't white. Like,
it's not,
and
that's
I feel
not
like,
a hot take.
I feel like the sooner we accept that, the much happier we're gonna be.
And I do love that they referenced that with the Benedict
Cumberbatch.
Cumberbatch
That's a really
thing.
good gag.
It's a great visual gag with
such a good gag.
Great, solid comedy from the boys.
The boys are back in town.
Comedy's back, baby. It's back.
Cool. So we go from one cross to another.
Oh, I like that.
Because next, I'll talk a little bit about Godzilla Kong, A New Empire, or Godzilla X Kong, or Godzilla Cross Kong, or Godzilla Times Kong. It's not really clear.
Or Godzilla Z Kong.
Godzilla X Kong.
So this is one you've seen.
I've seen this. Right off the bat, I probably wouldn't recommend it.
Okay.
I think, in a similar sense to Ghostbusters, the novelty of Godzilla is starting to, if not already, worn off. I really, really like the 2014 Godzilla, where it originated. I quite liked Godzilla King of the Monsters. I haven't yet seen Godzilla versus Kong. I guess the revelation with Godzilla versus Kong is that there's this new area of the Earth called... I've already forgotten what it was called. It was like...
A great memorable film.
Yeah, it was like Under Earth or like
Yeah.
Mid Earth or like it was something like that. But they basically like go into this warp hole dimension thing, and it's like a big fucking new land where there's all these crazy creatures about, and that's where Kong's living.
So you could say it's some sort of Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. You could say that because Kong's the last of them.
Planet of the Ape.
He's actually the last of his kind. Until we get introduced to the film's villain.
Oh my god!
Another big ape. Why? Bad choice right off the bat. Another big ape? Who cares? We've got one. That seems like the kind of thing that should have been saved for a Kong solo venture. You always do that on the first one. You fight the evil version of yourself. Why would that makes you're making Kong look weak by the fact that he needs to recruit the help of Godzilla to fight another big ape and an ice dragon.
That's bullshit.
I forgot to mention that he has an ice dragon on his team, the bad guy. 2 movies in 1 month, both with Empire and title, both with villains with ice powers.
Ice themed. What's going on here?
Well, why do people not? Do they not share notes?
Hollywood?
Guys?
What's happening over there?
Is it that you don't share notes or that you share too much?
I think you share too much, actually. It's the same 3 writers.
It might be the issue.
Same 3 writers, 1 director, they're doing everything.
Dan the Man Stevens is back.
He's back.
For this one?
Yes.
I like him a lot more in this. He's very, very fun. Does a really hammy British accent.
Nice.
Like quite Cockney accent.
I also know that, funnily enough, like Book of Clarence, there was another Atlanta alum in this film, in Brian Tyrese Henry. I know he was there. You'll know him as the guy from Eternals.
Oh,
I know him
yes.
as Paperboy.
He plays the sort of dorky podcast guy.
Nice. Is he called Podcast?
He's not called Podcast. He has a podcast. Apparently he was instrumental in solving whatever crisis was happening in Godzilla vs. Kong. I apologize for not seeing it, so I don't know how instrumental this character is. But he's essentially the one that they put in to make any kind of like pop culture reference and do the little one-liners and stuff. He mentions Discord at one point. He mentions internet trolls. So
cringe.
Very topical. Very topical.
We just need Zazie Beetz now in something we've seen to complete the 4 main cast of Atlanta.
Yeah,
we had Donald Glover last week. Keith Stanfield, Brian Tyrese Henry today. Just need some Zazie Beetz action. I don't know what she's got going on at the moment. But I look forward to whatever it is.
Some beats, probably. Zazie wants it.
Zazie Beetz. I thought that was a stage name, but that's just her name. That's just such a cool name, man. But I digress. Carry on with Kong x Godzilla.
There's really not a lot to talk about story-wise. Our main character is just this woman who works for Monarch, which is the big, like, monitoring company. And she has, like, an adopted daughter who comes from the tribe who are, like, the inhabitants of Skull Island, where Kong is from. So she's, like, got this whole, like, oh, I don't fit in kind of places anywhere. And this movie tells a nice wholesome message about how family isn't about where you're from, it's about the people. It's about the people who make your family.
That's so inspirational. I'm shedding a tear and I haven't even seen it.
Other than that, it's just big monster fights as you'd expect.
Well, obviously. Yeah, I hope there's some bloody action between all this bullshit family business.
I think maybe we've been spoiled too much.
Just not hitting the same, is it?
Yeah, I don't know if the sequences aren't as good or if it's just because we've had too much of them.
It's been quite a saturated market, big monster-wise. We've talked in the past on Pacific Rim, where there was a bit of a dry patch, and now it seems to have exploded.
Which is weird to think about it, because like I'll go back and watch the first Pacific Rim. I'll still go back and watch that, and I still think the fight sequences are great, and like the action in it is great. The fight sequences in this just don't hit the same. So it might be the quality of the fight sequences. It might just be like them establishing the gravity of the situation. I don't know. Or maybe it's because like I've already seen another Godzilla movie this year that was so much better.
Yeah, I think a lot of people agree. -1 is the better Godzilla movie of the year.
It's the scale issue. It's telling the story from a small scale, from the person's perspective, and seeing the destruction from how they're seeing it is so much more impactful than scaling things up, having two like big monsters fight and just destroy everything around them.
Yeah.
Where the collateral
With no
damage just
consequence,
seems like
yeah.
who cares?
Who gives a fuck?
Oh, you destroyed like a huge national landmark, who cares? You know, it's only like 1,000 years. It's been around
That's not
going to
have any repercussions.
like hundreds of generations of people like will have lived with that being there. Now it's gone. We just don't have it no more.
Yeah, just rip off George Washington's face on the mountain.
Oh well.
Just rip off Abe Lincoln as well. Actually, while you're there, actually just fucking crush Teddy Roosevelt, whoever else is up there. Fucking John Adams. I don't know. Fucking get all them off.
The cameo from Mothra.
Who?
Which it doesn't hit as big because Mothra's already appeared in this series.
Yeah.
I believe Mothra was in King of the Monsters. So we've already used Mothra. I want to see some more iconic villains. That was my issue, is that the villain in this, Scar King, and the Ice Beast seemed like original creations. Godzilla has such a really good, expansive rogues gallery that would be interesting to see a Western take on. I want to see actual established Godzilla monsters. We got King Ghidorah and Rodan in King of the Monsters. I haven't seen it, but I believe, from what I've heard, Mecha Godzilla is in Godzilla vs. Kong. There's still plenty more. Show me Anguirus, show me Megalon, show me Gigan, show me Jet Jaguar, show me Space Godzilla, show me Orga. There's so many. They have so many monsters, so many of them. I want to see them. I want to see them do it big, and with the big Hollywood budget, do it. You right?
Sorry, you listed about 200 monsters.
Falls flat, I think. A lot like Ghostbusters. Falls flat. Maybe it is just an overexposure.
It feels like it's running its course.
Too much too soon.
Milking it all out. They seem to have been coming out pretty regularly for the last decade or so.
Similar to the superhero fatigue, we're now getting kaiju fatigue, ghost-busting fatigue. It's all real.
Need some new original stuff. Speaking of new original stuff, I'm going to talk about Baby Reindeer.
That's the prequel to Reindeer, I assume.
Prequel to Reindeer. This is where we learn how he grows up. 100% a recommend from me. This is a Netflix series that I'm sure anyone listening or watching this has heard about. It's been everywhere, and deservedly so. This is a fantastic series. It's only 7 episodes, but it tells such a compelling and true story. It's based on Richard Gadd's real-life experience, who is the writer and director and the main actor in this. It's essentially a story about him being stalked by this woman, but it's so much more complex than that. It's just so multifaceted, and it's not just good versus bad. It's not just a victim and a stalker. There's two sides to all these characters, and there's moral ambiguity, and there's things that he's done wrong and things that she does wrong, and you sympathize with her, but you sympathize with him at times. I'm recommending it, but it's a bit of a hard watch in terms of it explores some dark themes like sexual abuse and victim blaming, and the system failing to deal effectively with these crimes that are being reported and not taking them seriously, especially when it's men that are reporting being abused. And it approaches all these themes with such poise and such honesty and rawness that I really admire Richard Gadd's ability to almost put himself through this again as a form of catharsis. Like, to not only write and direct a true story about yourself, but to also play yourself. Although he's Donnie in this, he plays a character. It's just sort of based on this experience.
The name has changed, but the story
it's dramatized.
Yeah.
But all these experiences that he went through are essentially real life experiences he's had, and I think you can tell it's incredibly important for him to tell this story, to process it in a way, and I think that's totally relatable. And like I say, it just exploring these themes can go so wrong. I think it can be so over the top, or too hard to watch, or too graphic, but it's a dark comedy at the end of the day, and it like walks that line so well. And I was literally like, every episode I wanted to watch the next. I think I watched 4. I just watched the first 4 in like an afternoon because I just couldn't stop, because they're so easy to digest as well, but they pack so much into each one. Yeah, just one of the best things I've seen this year. It was just like amazing. I really, really loved it. Fully a recommend. Yeah, I don't want to like spoil too much, because I've recommended it to you specifically as well, so I don't want to like go into specific plot details here. But like I say, anyone watching this has probably seen it. It's just been so popular, and deservedly so. And I'm interested now in seeing what he's gonna do and stuff he's done in the past and things. And Jessica Gunning, who plays Martha the Stalker, gives an incredible performance as well, in that, like I say, there are times where you almost pity her as well, despite the fact that she's the stalker in the situation.
That's kind of a way to do it. We've been talking about it a lot, about how it's so much more interesting to watch somebody who is morally grey or morally ambiguous.
Absolutely.
And to make up your own mind about them.
Absolutely,
rather than just
yeah.
straight up, here's the good guy, here's the bad guy.
Yeah, like, it doesn't need to be a black and white thing for you to root for people or to sympathize with people or to hate people. It doesn't need to be spelled out for you. And this show doesn't take a side like that, despite it being from his point of view, because he knows there are things that he did that were wrong or questionable, and so he can't really take the moral high ground on a lot of stuff. And so yeah, it's such a balanced narrative in that sense, that it doesn't fall on either side, but like deliberately so. It's not just being wishy-washy about the whole thing. It's like, just puts out this narrative and this information, sort of lets you decide, I guess, which is what he's been quoted as saying he didn't want to fall on either side of the thing because it's such a complex situation, I guess. But yeah, I could gush about that all day. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Maybe you get the chance to, because then I can go and watch it and people can look forward to hearing about it again next month.
Next month. And then we can talk about it together.
Next up, I'm going to talk about Spy Family Code White, or Spy X Family, or Spy Cross Family, or Spy Times Family, or Spy X Family. I'll kind of preface this a little bit just by, for context, talking about the series a little bit, because I watched through the series and build up to this, because it's been something that had been sort of on my list for a long time, and seeing that there was a movie coming out, I thought this is a good excuse as any to kind of work my way through it. Easy recommend to kick things off, both for the series and the movie. Just really, really fun. And I think I've kind of discovered that this is my, I don't want to say genre, like it's my favorite type of anime series, in that like it's not fully action like something like Dragon Ball or Naruto is, where they are 100% like it's an action series, but it's also not fully on the other end where it's just like a slice of life series. It kind of falls somewhere in the middle. So kind of the whole premise for this series is you have the Forger family as our main trio, which is a fake family, and the whole dynamic of this family sets is based on the fact that they're all hiding an aspect of themselves from each other. There's also a dog.
Nice.
There's also a dog.
My favorite character.
Who can see the future. They all have like weird powers and abilities that like they're all hiding from each other, and that's kind of like the dynamic of the show. The movie kind of breaks away from the main sort of plot line that the show follows, because that's about Lloyd needs Anya in order to infiltrate a fancy boarding school. You don't need to have seen the series at all to watch the film. It's very much like its own standalone thing, and it actually, like, a lot of the episodes and the start of this movie have a voiceover where they kind of sum up what's going on, who these characters are. And the thing I love about this movie is it takes the unbelievable aspect of this, of like, how are these people like not suspicious of each other?
Yeah.
They're never suspicious of each other, even though they're always constantly disappearing off to nowhere. Like, yours demonstrated that she knows like sick martial arts in front of them, and like Lloyd never questions it. And this just takes it to the extreme. It really just leans into that, where they're throughout the runtime of this, they're kind of facing off against the military on a big airship. That's where the climax happens, and by the end of it, like, they're making jokes about the fact that no one's suspicious, because they kind of have a cover story going on for any time they display something that would be seen as suspicious. But what I love about this is that it balances the action sequences, the high octane scenes, with really wholesome and fun, just slice of life family moments. And that's kind of where the heart of this series lies, is the fact that they all know that they're a fake family and they're not a real family, but through all the experiences they go through, they start to bond and become like a real family. And it does such a good job of like just mixing those two things together, even though they're complete like opposite ends of the spectrum. Action sequences in this are fantastic. The series itself is really well animated, and they just went like all out with this movie. It's beautiful to look at, which is like my key thing for animation. Like,
Absolutely.
I want to just be like enthralled by what you're showing me, and especially like with anime movies. I think you could probably show me an anime film that was nothing but establishing shots and backgrounds, and I would be sat there riveted because it's something they excel at.
Yeah, they're always really nice.
Oh
like
my god,
paintings,
like they're gorgeous. It switches up its art style a couple of times when they go through these sort of like fantasy sequences, and one of the fight scenes is like a really cool kind of like palette swap or like stylized version with like limited colors. And it's just so fun. I was saying, I can't remember the last time I had such a fun time watching a movie. Easy recommend, and I think like anyone can see it as well.
So it doesn't need kind of the context of the...
No, like you're given enough context at the beginning where you can enjoy it without having seen the series. It's probably like you're not as interested in kind of like the more wholesome like family bonding scenes because you haven't like had time to like any time to spend with these characters. It all leads to like my favorite gag of the series like so far. Like one of the like the tropes of anime is that a lot of gags are just facial expressions. Like their reactions to stuff. Like towards the climax, they're in this big airship. They've defeated the bad guy. The airship's like on fire and it's about to like crash in like into a town. And like Yor says to Lloyd, like, well, do you know how to fly an airship? And he turns around and he's like, yeah, I used to fly these back in my like college days. And then it cuts to like Anya and Yor on screen, and Anya just has like the most like, are you fucking serious? Like face on. They do the facial expressions throughout this series like so well. It like they just highlight all of the gags. It's just such a feast like visually, and I think that's all I really want with an animated film.
Next up, Fallout.
Not to be confused with the boy.
It is a recommend from me.
Yeah, easy.
Absolutely. Following the trend of the recent good video game adaptations.
Yeah, resurgence.
Yeah, they seem to be having a peak moment with The Last of Us, and I feel like there was something else recently.
The Last of Us, it hasn't come out yet, but Borderlands is coming out, the Borderlands movie, and that looks like it could be a lot of fun.
I'm not so much of a gamer these days, but I did play Fallout back in the day. Fallout 3 and New Vegas, I believe, were the ones I had. But this one is more based on Fallout 4 vibes, you were saying?
I think visually, it seems that they took a lot of inspiration from Fallout 4.
But I mean, I'm still understanding the world of it. I haven't gone into this blind. And so I think for fans of the game, it is so satisfying. I think it's been so well received because they've stayed true to the vibe of the games and what makes them work and the charm, I guess, of it, you know? It's not too dark. It's got a bit of whimsy about it. It's a bit silly because sometimes the games are funny just like accidentally in a way. Like, you know, lines of dialogue are a bit weird or there's funny glitches and shit.
I think what I really appreciate it is the thing that I appreciated, which was like a microcosm in The Walking Dead. In that the most interesting characters in that were the really like over the top, larger than life personalities, and that's like everyone in Fallout. Everyone is hamming it up. Everyone is like almost like a caricature. Yeah,
but it's not cheesy because it's this sort of heightened reality.
Yeah,
we're seeing a lot of it through the eyes of Lucy from the Vault as well, which is like she's experiencing the upper world for the first time. So I guess sort of seeing it from her perspective as well through like fresh eyes makes everything seem a bit more heightened and exaggerated, but like you say, it works. It's supposed to be a bit silly.
It's a fine line to walk with not forcing a bunch of stuff in as fan service, I guess, but I think it's just a credit to the costume design and the props department that there are so many shots in this where you just see them look at something or pick something up and you're like, I recognize what that is. Like, I recognize what that is from the game, and because they've done such a good job of replicating it, like, physically.
Yeah. It's a great tool to have an audience and a fan base that will already be familiar with things, so that you don't necessarily have to fully introduce stuff or explain everything, but they do it just enough that I think anyone not familiar with the games would also enjoy this, just as a series.
I think it's set California, I think, isn't it?
Way.
Yeah. I don't know if maybe because I didn't play the original Fallouts, like Fallout 1 or 2.
No.
I only played the once Bethesda got a hold of the IP, because I think they didn't have anything to do with 1 or 2. They were purely like 3 onwards.
They're like a different type of game.
So maybe one of the first 2 Fallouts was set in or around California, and that's where they're getting a lot of like the lore kind of stuff from.
Yeah, so it's kind of a cool way to do it, because then it's fresh still to a lot of fans of the game, but also familiar enough and more familiar to, I guess, if there's any die-hard fans that have been playing since like game one.
Yeah.
But I know that the later ones are much more popular. It just has the perfect balance of references, but not hamming it up too much to just be like, you recognize this, don't you? Look, you recognize this from your youth.
Look at this, clap.
Yeah.
Clap, idiot. Look, I'm jangling my keys in front of you.
What was I going to say as well? God, I had a great point.
Were you going to make a point about how Walton Goggins is a very funny name?
Walton Goggins, great name. Just a great name. And his real name as well, we googled it. Not only his real name, he's Walton Goggins Jr.
Junior. There
His
was
dad
multiple.
was also called Walton Goggins.
He was so set on the fact that, like, yeah, Walton Goggins, that's the one.
We can have another one. Yeah, let's have another Walton Goggins. I'm going to actually call my son Walton as well.
I mean, when people say, this ain't it, Chief, this is it, Chief.
This is it,
This name,
Chief.
this is it, Chief.
That's what I was going to say, is I think video game adaptations, especially when it's a game like Fallout, like The Last of Us, where it's so story heavy, and it's essentially a movie that you're interacting with. I think a risk with doing these things is you're taking out what makes that story compelling, which is that you're in it. You're basically doing a story, but we don't get to control these characters anymore, or collect, or make them in our image, or collect stuff and figure out puzzles. So I think there's always a bit of a danger with these things, but I think they've made an interesting enough original story that isn't just a plot line from one of the games to, you know, make you interested in it, despite the fact that it's like a world that you're familiar with, but you're familiar with it because you've been in it, you know? And now we just get to watch it.
People, I think, are very quick to dismiss video games as a legitimate storytelling medium. I think some of the best stories have come from
It was always my
video
favorite.
games.
Like, that's why I liked Fallout and things like Skyrim. I used to play like the RPG type stuff, and Uncharted. I think that was always my favorite type of games. I was never into Call of Duty and that sort of vibe. Like, I preferred the sort of cinematic games, I guess.
I guess it's kind of interesting comparing like Fallout and The Last of Us, because they're two very different things. I think The Last of Us would have been much more easy to translate to TV because
it's a bit more linear, isn't it?
It's a bit more linear, and they already have an established lead role. Like, you play as Joel in the game and have Ellie as your sidekick. Whereas Fallout, the whole point is you make the character you want, you set their skills how you want them to be, and you play like how you want to.
So that's what I mean, is it is a bit of a risk to do that world, but we don't get the
You don't get the choice, you have to follow this.
Yeah. And so I think they've done it well, I think.
She's
in making these compelling characters.
Enough character, and I guess that was the better way of doing it, is rather than just be like, here's your main character, you're with them the whole time. Instead, we have kind of three intertwining
ongoing
stories.
Stuff, which makes it, because when you're playing the game, you don't just do the main plot line the whole time. You're going off doing side things and side missions and just exploring in general. And so it helps to have that vibe in, that they have all these little tangents that they're going on. Like, there's the main goal, which is to get a dad back, but they're doing all these like funny little adventures along the way, and like you say, we're following the three, so it just keeps it like fresh. And like you say, because as a game, it isn't as linear, and you don't just follow one path, you can go anywhere. So it's cool to put us as an audience, we're still able to do that chopping and changing to different missions and plot lines and stuff, but just from the viewpoint of different characters instead of your character doing it all, I guess.
I will say this, vanilla Fallout, you can't play as a ghoul, so 1 out of 10. Big mistake, buddy. Big mistake, Mr. Howard. What were you thinking?
Walton Goggins isn't in the game. 1 out of 10.
Fallout 4 has a pretty expansive character creation engine. You could probably make something that looks at least somewhat similar to Ella Pennell, but you can't play as a ghoul. Todd Howard, that's on you.
That's on you, buddy.
That's on you. Yes, you were in the chess club.
What? Yeah, I like it. I like it. It's a great show.
I think
really well done.
Only different, I guess, be very difficult to do. Maybe bring in the technology where we can customize what the characters are, just to make it more legitimate to the game, you know? Make it so you can choose what the character looks like. You know what lead I'd go for?
Mm-hmm.
Big dog, floppy ears,
big dog,
green hat, orange shirt, big shoes, big buck teeth.
I don't know if you can do that.
Has a movie.
You definitely can't do that.
Came out in 1995.
No, you can't put that. You can't put him in.
Maybe has a son. He's looking for his son. In Fallout 4, you're looking for your son.
No.
Max. You're looking for your son, Max. Goof.
You're not. It's not right.
Fallout 5, maximum goofage.
It's not true.
Maybe they shouldn't have given us the creation kit to make mods in Fallout. Maybe that was a mistake. You put Goofy in your game. Now it's ruined forever.
Fallout Goof Vegas. Thank you for watching HAZMAT, reviewing every movie they saw in April 2024.
If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see us do more stuff like this in the future, then you can support the channel by leaving a like or a comment. You can hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell. That way you'll be alerted to all of our more recent uploads. And as always, all of our socials will be listed down in the description.
And join us next time where I fight a big monkey with a inflatable banana.
And I am going to finally finish my journey to spiritual enlightenment. Because I've always wanted to be an old man tortoise. Monkey.
Oogway.
But this one goes out to you, Oogway.
You can go your way.
Goofgway, how about that?
No!